Let's see how this goes. I'm sure everything's gonna work swimmingly. Everything's gonna work just fine. Yep. Just fine. Everything's gonna work. Good old restart. NBC is just useless. I swear to God. We gonna watch the Trump shit show? You bet, Lenny. You bet. That's what we're here for. Pretty sure what's gonna happen here is, I mean, he's gonna lie his ass off. He's gonna lie like like he's never lied before. He's gonna claim politicians in the Senate are illegitimate. He's gonna claim, of course, the 2020 election was rigged, even though he was president at the time. Maybe I should have. Okay, we're overloaded. No, okay, we're not. Okay. I had 32 gigs of RAM in my laptop, and then this RAM chip decided to shit the bed, so now I have 16. So today's stream brought to you by 16 gigs of RAM instead of 32. Great. All right. Things seem to be working. A reboot might have done it. 30 frames per second here. The SpaceX shuttle failed. Didn't blow up though, which sucks. Would have been a nice omen there had it blown up. We got about 22 minutes before the lies start. I thought I would, tune into some mainstream news, and I don't know why I thought I would do that, because it's garbage. I mean, it's just catching up with our friends at the ISS. Haha, chuckles. Like, there isn't anything more important happening. Like, I guess space stuff is important, but you do the space stuff after you do the important stuff. You don't ignore the important stuff and just do the space stuff. Hey, how's it up? How you doing up there? Let me see if I can do something about this brightness, because it is just kind of bright, isn't it? Oh, okay, there we go. Oh, that might have fixed something. Low light compensation. See what happens when I do that. Nothing. Okay. Well, let me do the pan though. Pan to the left. Yeah. I'm at a Billy Bragg concert right now. Nya nya, kiss my ass, peace out. Okay. Well, have fun. I'm happy for you. Billy Bragg. Who's Billy Bragg? Is that someone I should know? Billy Bragg? Sounds like country music. Welcome back, Doubting Josephus, but you're not going to be here very long, so. Screw you, buddy. I'm at a Billy Bragg concert. Well, what the shit? How do I... Doesn't do shit. I need that to get it to work? How does the pan work? Alright, whatever. Fine, we'll do things the old-fashioned way. Move it manually, I guess. Too lazy. There we go. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Ugh, yuck, yuck, yuck. We're yucking it up. It's the end of the fucking country. And these fucking jokers over here. You turn off HD. Can I do that? Nice moving back screen. I stole it from YouTube. Like everything. I stole it from YouTube. Hope you enjoy it. Someone else made it. I did not compensate them for it. I'm a dirty thief. Okay, Zoom's gonna work though, right? Okay, there we go. I can zoom in a little bit. I'm a dirty, disgusting thief. Disgusting. All right. Well, I gotta play something here. I got NBC on because I kind of want to see what their reactions are. Want to see what their reactions is. There. I think this website is killing my computer though, so maybe I'll do it a favor. Okay, perfect timing. Okay. So my wife is, I got citizenship. They said I'm a citizen, but they haven't reached out to me about doing the ceremony yet. But my wife, it's supposed to be a joint thing. And my wife, her thing is scheduled for tomorrow. Her ceremony where you pledge allegiance to the king. But they haven't hit me up yet. Like, what the hell? All right, let's listen to a little Kyle.
All right, welcome to the show, y'all. It is Thursday, July 16th.
Yeah. Skip this crap.
The Epstein Zorro Ranch investigation that New Mexico's Attorney General is doing. And needless to say, it's because we know where all the bodies are buried. We know the skeletons in his closet. They are
God, dude. 3 rounds with the
numerous,
semi-truck.
to say the least. And then later on,
this is just normal me. I haven't taken a shower in a couple days. That's the only difference. But thanks, Simply Steve. I don't get a lot of time to myself. In fact, my son, who's taking a nap right now, you know, my special needs son, he could wake up at any moment. He'll probably wake up the second Trump starts talking, and I'll have to take care of that while listening, you know. I don't get time to myself anymore, man. My life has been, I know it's not very nice to say ruined, but I don't get a life anymore. So this is why that's why I look like this. Because I don't really have a life anymore.
we have Alex Jones and Nick Shirley have an idiot competition. And man, that's a real duel right there. That's a real battle of the minds right there. So you guys know the drill, man. Everybody do me a big favor. Subscribe to the channel and click that bell icon that helps.
Okay, just come
advertiser or do an ad read. But you guys.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, Krail Azanath, what he's going to do is he's going to declare the enemy of America is going to be anybody to the left of MAGA. The plan is to call us all communists, to classify us as terrorists, and take away our freedom of speech outright. You know, we're going to start. It's just like I was telling you a couple months ago, you know, they're going to start targeting us on social media, things like that. So that's what we can expect from this speech. On top of saying that several senators are illegitimate, that their votes don't count, that their elections were stolen. And he's also going to declare the 2020 election. He's going to say he has some kind of super de-duper hidden evidence. Thank you, Lenny. I see that chat there. Thank you, Lenny. But yeah, he's going to claim he has some evidence that China stole the 2020 election. That's really going to help with Chinese relations, by the way. But yeah, Krail, it's going to be kicking the fascism into high gear, pretty much. Pretty much. That's what we're going to be seeing. That's my prediction, at least. I mean, we could just get the normal stump, Trump stump, you know. I'm the greatest, actually. Everything's great and everything's good and I'm great and biggest ever, blah blah blah. You know, we could be getting that, but a lot of people are quite concerned about this. And Caroline Levitt actually came out. I don't want to bother opening up my Discord, just take my word for it, but it's in the Discord there. But Caroline Levitt came out and she said people are going to freak out about this speech. And there's a lot of people predicting that, you know, he's going to say a lot of things that are not true. The question is, what's he going to do about it? And they already have NSPM 7 in place. They're ramping up the rhetoric about quote unquote communism, right? You know, but the proof is in the pudding. Are you actually gonna? Because what they want these voter rolls, and then what we're probably going to see is like mass harassment of anybody who voted for Democrats. You know, anybody on social media who's left leaning. We're probably going to see, you know, oh, well, you're now a terrorist. You're now considered a terrorist. So, you know, they're going to start treating us like that. Yeah, Lenny. But I mean, up until now, it was just like, okay, they're just going to show up to the polling places and intimidate people. But I think the plan is to take it to this next level, right? And they've kind of already shown that, you know, with these anti-ICE protesters that they arrested and given ridiculous sentences to, 50 years, 30 years. The guy with the zines, I think he got 10 years for distributing zines. And of course, it was all under the auspices of terrorism. And of course, the zine was just, you know, it wasn't like, you know, kill everybody and, you know, murder and, you know, terrorism. And it was all just like, here are your rights, or here's where your rights used to be. You know, this is how you can fight ICE. You know, basic protest dissent stuff in the zine. It wasn't like the zine was like a bomber's manifesto or anything. And they threw that guy away for 10 years. So I think that's what we're going to be getting, is people like me are going to be targeted by the government. They're going to go after Hassan. And they're going to, you know, kangaroo court, trumped up charges, no pun intended. And they're going to try to throw people away, you know, to intimidate it. You're going to, because you can't, they don't have the resources to go after every lefty. So you would go after high value lefties. So obviously not me, but Hassan, Vosh, you know, maybe even Destiny. That would be funny. You know, that would be funny to see. But, you know, lefties with a name. So like Aaron Rupar on Twitter, Adam Mockler, right? Anybody who's any lefty that's been on CNN, you know, Kyle Kulinski, Crystal Ball. That's what you would do. You'd think these people are, you'd say these people are terrorists and take them out. By the way, big props to everybody who showed up for this special stream. Krail of Xanath, we got Lenny in here, Simply Steve. Josephus is at a Billy Bragg concert. Who the hell is Billy Bragg? I don't even know who that is. But thank you to anybody, any lurkers out there. Thank you. We're going to get started in about 10 minutes. So let's watch a little bit more of Kyle.
Guys, support the show from the ground up, man. It's your support.
Okay,
and the default
we get it.
Sub if you haven't yet. Let's kind of love this term. It's basically like when you talk to people and they say, yeah, I hate the Democrats and I hate the Republicans. They both are pieces of shit. But then you ask them like, okay, well, who are you going to actually vote for though when push comes to shove? And the result is 55% supporting Democrats and only 29% supporting Republicans. Now, I'm no mathematician, but I believe that's a 26-point lead among.
And remember, these are voters. So there's tens of millions of people that are not participating, that are not voting. And they're just completely checked out. So this is just, so when you hear that 29% Republican, remember that's not 29% of the entire population of America.
The double haters, which is absolutely catastrophic.
Yeah, Simply Steve, you're talking about the person who refused to serve, I think it was a politician, right? Because they supported Israel. Yeah. We're going to need to get a lot more radical than that. But yeah, I mean, of course I support that, Oh, I see. It was National Guard troops that they refused to serve. Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to get, we're going to have to, and of course we're going to have to try to avoid violence as much as possible, but they're going to bring violence to us. That's the thing, is that they're going to, they're going to cross that threshold, and they're going to start kicking down doors and, throwing us into gulags, Palestine style, and having their way with us. There's going to be all kinds of horror stories coming out. ICE is probably going to feel emboldened to kill more people in cold blood. Yeah, I respect that as well. That's, it used to be you weren't allowed to discriminate, right, as a business owner, but then they changed that. So now, the fucking gay cake saga.
And naturally, MAGA is going to freak out over this fact. So I also wanted to show you, apparently this is a group that has always been, to one extent or another, sort of pro-democratic, but now the number is just way more extreme than it was before. So here, let me read this to you. Americans have never liked their political parties less. Pew found in May that 26% of adults now hold an unfavorable view of both parties, the highest share in more than 3 decades of asking the question, and more than 4 times the comparable percentage in 1994. Damn. So that means everybody feels like the system is more broken today than it was in 1994.
Yeah, no, the GOP, the Republicans, they understand in an honest democratic contest that they're going to lose. And yeah, they're going to do everything they can to steal it. It's obvious. The real question is, what are we going to do about it when they go through with it? And if the answer is jack shit, wait for the federal, wait for the presidential election, give them 2 more years, right? We don't protest, we don't shut it down, we just acquiesce, and we let these illegitimate people hold on to power, gain new seats. It really is all over at that point. And aggressive, radical revolution is the only path forward. That's it, because there's no more democratic path, and the thing is that, they're not very good stewards of the economy. So it's not like people are going to have to quit their job. Their job will quit them. They're not going to have a job. So there's going to be millions of people, and it's already started, of course, but there's going to be millions more people with nothing left to lose and nothing but time on their hands, and that's the recipe right there for a revolution.
The averages at 50+1 show both parties sitting around 15 points underwater on favorability, and neither has been above water in years. Over the last few election cycles, analysts have become obsessed with how these double haters vote. In 2016 and 2024, Donald Trump won voters who had an unfavorable opinion of both him and his opponent by double digits.
Yeah, they bought the lies.
So Trump beat Hillary and Trump beat Kamala by double digits, with people who said, I don't really like both of them, but they broke overwhelmingly for Trump in those instances. This is according to exit polls. He also won them in 2020, but the group was a much smaller slice of the electorate then. So,
well, I mean, it really isn't just gerrymandering. That's, we're talking straight up fraud. Like, we're talking, literally changing the numbers of the vote. A Republican GOP sycophant bought the Dominion voting systems, changed the name to Freedom or some shit like that. and we're, that's the next step is, 100 liberals voted for this, for the Democrat, and then the results show only 50 votes for the Democrat, like literally just changing the numbers. And we're not going to get access to the data. We're not going to be able to confirm anything. All we'll have is anecdotal, stories from the press, exit polls and things like that, but we won't have hard data to prove the fraud. Trump just a couple weeks ago fired a government organization designed to help prevent fraud, to help facilitate free and fair elections. He fired these people. And the obvious, the obvious reason is that he's going to commit fraud, All right, so I think we just have a couple more minutes here. Yep, 3 more minutes.
So now in 2026, in their June poll, Strength in Numbers and Verisight, they asked 2,000 Americans to rate both parties on a 0 to 100 feeling thermometer. 0 is cold and 100 is warm towards the party, okay? About 1 in 5 registered voters put both parties below 50. This is the group that they'd call double haters, okay? So they go on to say, our poll shows double haters favor Democrats for 2026 by 26 points, while everyone else splits about evenly. Democrats led by 2 among voters who like at least one party. If you do the math on the generic ballot, currently Democrat plus 7 is our poll. This means that the double haters are responsible for about 80% of the party's national margins. That's incredible. So in other words, this is a very electorally important group, is what they're saying here. So it's not just these double haters that are super important in terms of as a demographic. As you all know, Trump made massive gains in 2024 with young people in particular. It was young people, it was independents, it was actually Hispanic voters. He picked up with those groups. And
yeah, they bought the lie that he was somehow going to be different. And it's really interesting that they bought the lie because they had his whole first term. But 4 years, the Americans' populations, their memory is like a goldfish. And like 4 years might as well have been 400 years. After COVID and 4 years of Joe Biden, they had completely erased their memory of the first Trump administration. Yeah, I mean, this could be it. I mean, this is like, the more Republicans control things, the worse things are going to, the worse things are going to get in terms of employment, in terms of societal stability. And we might be in a situation where like we have all the ingredients of a revolution, but the people have no knowledge, and there's not enough there's not enough gutsy people to organize. There's not enough organizational effort, and we could see all that revolutionary energy turn into chaos that the fascist government will then take advantage of to further solidify control and make it as impossible as possible. Making it as impossible as they can to fight back. And the end goal being a government very similar to China or Russia, right, where speaking out in any way gets you sent to jail for decades. You just get disappeared. Real quick before we start here, Thomas Massie pointing out, of course, because we're going to hear a lot about fraud, and Thomas Massie pointing out that, hey, Republicans won the Senate, they won the House, they got the White House, they control the Supreme Court. What are you talking about with, that there's fraud in elections? If there really was this amazing amount of fraud, wouldn't there be more Democrats in charge? All right, so here we go. We're live from the Lie House. Yeah, let's keep it at 720p. Just to help with my shit-ass computer here. We don't have audio yet. Manu Raju here pointing out, so they tried to add the Steal America Act to the budget bill, and the parliamentarian is shit canning that. I'm really shocked that they haven't fired the parliamentarian. I'm pretty sure they did in Trump's first term. I don't know what they're waiting for. But yeah, they tried to, last ditch effort to get the Save America Act, the Steal America Act passed. They tried to attach it to the budget bill. Looking at some of these tweets. Okay, thanks, Kevin. Kevin saying that, big speeches like this, they're reserved for big announcements because networks have to interrupt their sitcoms or reality shows. Okay. Kevin over here living in the 90s. What's a sitcom? You know what I mean? Like, do those exist anymore? Does like network TV actually, I know it like technically exists, but who's watching that? Oh God, here we go.
Good evening. Before we begin, I'm proud to report that our country is safer, stronger, and far wealthier than it has ever been before.
Lie.
We are doing great.
Lie.
Less than 2 years ago, we inherited an economic and social disaster.
Lie.
After the worst inflation in 48 years, the
Lie.
wide open borders with millions and millions of people pouring
Inflation
in from
was headed down
all over the world,
it was
including
high because of
criminals
COVID.
all types, and 11,888 murders, many of whom killed more than one person. We had transgender for everybody, men and women's sports, crime ravaging our cities, and the
Lie.
whole world was laughing
Crime
at
was
us
down.
as a nation. But
The
not
world laughs
anymore.
at us even harder.
2 years ago, our country was dead. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world.
Total lie.
America is respected like we have
We're
never
like a
been
dozen lies
respected before.
Total lie.
We have
We've
more
never
money
been less
being
respected.
invested in the United States than at any time in the history of our country.
Total lie.
More Americans are working today than ever before.
Lie.
This week it was announced that inflation saw the largest monthly decline in more than 6 years. Just happened. It was just given out. The media reported it, and we accept it. The best in 6 years. The tax cuts in our great, big, beautiful bill are saving
The
hardworking
tax cuts have
families
raised inflation.
thousands and thousands of dollars. Like with the provisions, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax
Lie.
on Social Security for our great seniors, along
Lie.
with the interest deduction on a loan used to purchase a car, but only if that car is made in America, and a 100% expensing for our job-creating businesses. Our stock markets are at their highest point in many years, but we
True,
can actually
but that
say
doesn't actually
of
reflect
all time.
anything.
And your 401ks, pensions, and retirement accounts are setting records every single day, the highest in history. For years, we paid the highest price for prescription drugs anywhere in the world. Now we pay the lowest price
Lie.
under my most favored nation's
Total
policy,
lie.
because I was able to get the rest of the world and the
Total lie.
pharmaceutical companies to act responsibly. Drug prices are coming down by 70, 80, and 90%.
Manu Raju doesn't have the balls to say Trump is lying his ass
This
off.
will ultimately reduce the cost of health care. You have to go
Lie.
to trumprx.gov and
A
take
coupon
advantage of it.
website.
But the cost of health care is coming way down because
Lie.
of what we've done with prescription drugs.
Total lie.
And with Trump accounts, every child in America now has access to a tax-free investment account to save for their future. Billions and
I'm
billions
sure that's
of
a
dollars
grift.
are being invested, put in by
I don't know enough
companies
about
and
it, but I'm sure
individuals
it's a grift.
to take care of our children so that At age 18, they will have potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in their account.
Lie.
And they'll get off to a great start in life. So for that, go to trumpaccounts.gov and sign up your child or any child who'd like to sign up.
Seems
Our
like
previously
a big
wide
grift,
open borders
big
have been
rip-off.
transformed into the most secure borders in the history of our country.
Lie.
With zero illegal aliens being admitted
Right?
to the
Packer?
United States.
Yeah,
in the
something's up
past
with it.
14 months. That is zero. Nobody thought it was possible. We had the worst border in the history of our country, and now
Wow,
we have
this
the
Kevin
best.
guy is
Crime
he's
is
got the boot
plummeting
fully in his
nationwide
mouth.
with the murder rate at its lowest level since 1900, or more than 125
Economic
years ago.
accomplishments.
We're making a record investment in our armed forces, and we have the strongest and most powerful military by far anywhere in the
Lie.
world.
We're
I
getting our
built it
ass
during
kicked
my
by
first
Iran.
term, and unfortunately, we're forced to use it now. We won in Venezuela, which is now working with us to produce
We didn't win anything in
millions and
Venezuela.
millions of barrels of oil. We are likewise winning big in Iran, and you will
Lie.
see the fruits of that labor very, very shortly.
Total lie.
America is back and doing really well, but we
Complete
still
lie.
have a major challenge that must be urgently addressed, because no country can be great without fair and honest elections.
Here we go.
You have to trust your country, because if there can be no trust, there can be no greatness.
There's no
And that's
problems
very
in our
simple.
elections before
No
Trump
trust,
started manufacturing
no
this.
greatness. For many years, I've called for bold, swift, and decisive action to protect the integrity of America's elections. Every American deserves to know that when they cast their vote, that vote will be counted accurately in a system.
He's destroying
and
the
that is
integrity of
to
our
make
elections.
That system secure.
They were
One
so. I
where
mean, they
cheating
they
and
got in
interference
office.
are not just difficult, but virtually impossible. Unfortunately, the system we have today falls catastrophically
Lie.
short of that
Total
standard.
lie.
Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of critical intelligence revealing shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure.
Okay.
This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes and
Is
really
this the
exposes
election
like
system that got you
levels
elected?
never thought possible to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference. Just as disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you, the American people, our beautiful, our great American people. But that all changes right now. The documents we will release starting tonight have been gathered by the White House Government Transparency Task Force, a great group of people, along with the staff
Guarantee
of
you
the
it's a bunch
President's
of fucking
Intelligence
claptrap.
Advisory Board,
Guarantee
supported
you.
by our top intelligence agency chiefs, who have all personally reviewed the findings. We are presenting this evening and fully confirmed their authenticity.
Yeah, and Kevin over here.
You can see these
sucking it up,
documents for
dude.
yourself
Slurping
at
it up.
whitehouse.gov. That's whitehouse.gov. Go check it out. Our purpose in disclosing this information is not to weaken confidence in election, but to
Lie.
earn that confidence by
Total lie.
confronting vulnerabilities and correcting them very, very quickly. And that's what we're doing.
He's going to create
The documents
vulnerabilities.
cover 5 major areas of concern. First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of
That was on
election
your
data
watch,
in
if
history,
true.
resulting in
not
China's
true.
illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote
Under your
and
watch,
engage
Trump.
in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China assigned a data exploitation unit specifically to this new project. Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group
Who?
of people, many cases,
Who?
in our intelligence agency worked to actively suppress and downplay
That was
information
your
about
deep
the
state,
extent
dude. That
of
was
China's
your
sinister
administration.
election meddling, covering it up from both the president and the American people like nobody thought was possible. U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they discovered that tens of millions of voter data, think of that, tens of millions of voters' data.
That doesn't mean anything.
In 18 states
Someone stole
have
some
been
data.
bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden.
I mean, what does
They
that
did
mean?
not disclose
Data
to me
was
as
stolen.
president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they kept saying is, this is the most secure election in the history of our country. A standard, very pat line that was divvied out to say the cover-up of this colossal security breach.
I love the CNN feed, just
the additional
right-wing
information showing that China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration and our 2020 campaign. They did not want, and they just didn't want it. They fought like hell not to have it, Donald Trump, to win, and for good reason. As the documents we are releasing show, CIA
But he had the best results
reporting
ever, by the way.
Explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes.
He brags about the best results ever, but now he's saying the results were compromised.
Isn't that nice? Also, in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot.
More from Kevin.
Actually, your president has done a great job, and they did everything possible to do exactly that.
Man,
Going
Kevin is a
on, this
bootlicker,
document says,
dude.
and this is by the CIA,
Questioning.
the strategy included efforts to use
President
Chinese
says this.
contacts
Oh.
with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America.
None of this is
The
an
Chinese
indicator that
government
anything was
sought to
stolen, by the
identify
way.
U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because they knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world. These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the
Not once have these so-called press members pointed out that any of this is fucking bollocks.
Obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA
And a fake
reports
ballot
about
doesn't mean it
China's
was
election
counted.
targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI
None of this proves anything.
wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political. Recently, we found significant numbers of burn bags in formation, and this is a group of bags that were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama to be burned. It was supposed to be burned. These bags were supposed to be at a different level by different people, incinerated and checked.
Wait, Obama?
But it never happened.
You won that election.
Maybe we got lucky. We believe this was not done on purpose, but rather through gross incompetence of the people that was supposed to burn the bags. But the findings are stunning. Today, I'm asking the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the CIA to investigate how and why such crucial information was hidden, to fire those involved in the cover-up, and
so
to
another
file
do
criminal
nothing, go
charges, if
nowhere
appropriate,
investigation.
against these
Okay.
people. Yet concealing China's meddling was only the beginning. The third
Well, China's
set of
response is
documents
going to be
we are
interesting to
releasing
this.
proves that for many years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting
stickers.
machines and ballot counting systems. Dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable.
You won two of
and they're
those elections.
easily compromised.
You
and
won two of these
people within our
dishonest
government
elections.
knew that. Tonight,
Two
we're
out of
publishing
three.
a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attack. As one assessment
A
states,
right-winger
we judge
owns these
that
machines now.
the United States adversaries, including at a minimum Russia,
And there's
China,
no proof.
Iran, North Korea, as
So
well
many
as
court cases
non-state
were
groups,
lost.
have the
Trying to
capability
prove that there was some kind of
compromise
fault in the
US
Dominion
election
machines.
infrastructure. That's unquote, but that's some statement, isn't it? Made by supposedly great patriots of our country.
It's literally just a bunch of
Document
bullshit
goes
so
on
far.
to further state that,
As
quote,
expected.
we assess that centralized election-related data repositories, such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites, are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to
Shoulda,
disrupt
coulda, woulda.
election
We're
processes within the
investigating.
United States
He's
of
got
America.
nothing here.
Tonight, we're releasing all of those findings and spanning from January 2020 to June
Yeah,
2026.
thank you, Kevin. Saying something
This is
worth a
cyber
damn.
threat aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election
So
results.
he's got
on
made-up
these
claims, and he's
terrible
going to look
machines.
into these made-up
Today,
claims.
we are releasing
Okay.
documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a
Wasn't it
big
like $1
number
billion,
in favor
Lenny?
of the corrupt
It was more than
Maduro
400 billion
regime in
or
Venezuela.
400 million.
And that's exactly what
That's why Tucker
happened,
Carlson lost his
conspiring
job.
to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020, and that's what they did. This reporting included precise details about methods to regime develop to digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not
Yeah, the My Pillow
be
guy got
detected
sued into
even
fucking
with
oblivion
an audit, no matter how deep they went.
until it was
This
bought by a right-wing
intelligence
company, and then the
underscores
case was
why
dropped.
We must take urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised like it was in the past.
So
The fourth set of documents
Investigations
reveals that
into
even
nonsense.
when significant evidence of fraud has been detected, it has been buried and covered up. Among the disclosures tonight are FBI files detailing evidence of alleged fraud by a large-scale voter registration operation in Michigan. In 2020, Michigan State Police raided a Democrat Get Out the Vote organization, corrupt group in Muskegon. And we're so concerned by what they found. They were just so concerned. They couldn't believe it, actually, that they contacted the FBI in Detroit.
So fraud was
The documents
investigated
state
and
that
then
some
followed up on, and people were
canvassers admitted
arrested,
to
and
FBI
so the
agents
system
that they
was
signed voter
working.
registration forms in other people's names.
So the system was
Submitted
working.
fraudulent registration for people who did not exist, and received gift cards tied to their number
they
of
cast votes that
applications
counted?
they produced. In other words, It was pay, play, and cheat. The FBI agents working on the case believe that crimes were committed, yet the Biden Department of Justice slow-walked the investigation and killed it. Tonight, I'm asking.
So they killed the
FBI
investigation when they didn't find any wrongdoing.
Matter is fully investigated.
Right.
And to work with the Department of Justice to prosecute those responsible for any crimes. Finally,
Doesn't sound like any crimes
just
were
how
committed.
vulnerable our elections continue to be, we are releasing the results of a stunning investigation by the Department of Homeland Security. According to the DHS review, state voter rolls and public records, they identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections.
But they didn't vote.
Since Democrat states refuse to share
You can be
their
registered
voter
to
files,
vote and then you
the
get
real number is
disqualified.
actually much
That doesn't
higher
mean
than
your
that.
vote went through
Yet,
and
even
was counted.
this limited analysis found more than 250,000 foreigners illegally registered to vote. Put together, these disclosures reveal an election system so broken and so vulnerable.
so broken and
that no
vulnerable,
one
it
can
voted for you
possibly
twice.
Defend it. It is not defensible. Hundreds of millions
He's
of
got
U.S.
nothing.
voter files are in the hands of foreign governments. Our machines and ballot counting systems are exposed to hacking and manipulation and corruption.
He's
China
got
and other
nothing.
countries have been
This is
trying to
it?
meddle in our elections. Evidence of fraud has been buried. Hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed and active on the voter rolls. And yet we still have elections with
Proof?
no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and tens of millions of ballots floating aimlessly through the mail. As one example
But
of the insanity, California's
all
recent
the
election
checks.
for mayor of LA
No one
and
gets
governor
through the checks.
was held on June 2nd, long time ago, but it was just completed a few days ago on July 10th. Think of that,
I
much
feel
more
like
than 1 month.
when he talks,
Took
I
a
feel
month
like
to
I'm
count the
listening
votes.
to a
I wonder what they
rapist.
were doing. This is worse than any third world country. There's no third world country that has elections like we have.
Lie, total
In a rare
lie.
move, NBC and ABC Fake News have both said that they would not cover this speech. They knew what it was about
They're covering it.
because of the fact that they don't like the topic, because they
NBC's
know how
covering it.
corrupt our system is, and they don't want to reveal it. They and others in the media are part of a plot. They want to continue this fraud for whatever reason. They want to keep it going.
The
They want to
plot that
protect
got
the
you into
radical
office
left.
twice.
They can't have a great country, and that's true. You can't have a great country without free and fair elections. Fraud like this should mean a revocation of their licenses. They use our public
they're
multi-billion
gonna do
dollar
that
in
anyway.
value airways for absolutely no money. They pay nothing. All we want is honesty in our elections and honesty in reporting.
He
They pay
wants the
nothing
exact
for
opposite.
multi-billion dollar
Fraud and ambiguity.
assets. Great damage has been done to our country. Our elections were left vulnerable to being rigged and stolen.
Lie. Total
And
lie.
the trust of the American people was lost. This cannot be allowed to continue. Every American, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or otherwise,
He's a total lie. He's
should
lying.
be able to agree that
Total
we
lie.
deserve the most secure, honest, and fair election system anywhere in the world. Secure elections should be a partisan, really, we should be together, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, everybody, and it should not be a partisan issue. It should cause to
It's
unite
partisan
us,
because
not
he wants
divide
to
us.
undermine
This
them.
should be a cause. We should be united, not divided. In light of the brand new and irrefutable information I have revealed tonight, my administration is in the process of
It's
notifying
a wheelbarrow of
the
junk.
states whose election data was compromised by the People's Republic of China and many others. We will be working closely to mitigate any harm, and we're taking swift action to ensure that sensitive voter data is better protected so we can never be bought, we can never be hacked, and we can never watch a stolen election again. Tomorrow, the Secretary of
He's
Homeland
got baseless
Security will hold a briefing
allegations and
to
zero
outline his
proof.
department's recent work confirming cyber vulnerabilities in our electronic voting systems. They are bad. We're in the process of informing governors, senators, and members of Congress of potential issues in their states. If you look at voting today, it's in such bad shape in so many states. And we
You got a mega
committing to fix it.
supermajority from it.
And we're also committing to be working with those states.
If we're
and
stealing the
local
elections, we're not
jurisdictions to
doing a
help
very
them
good
fix and
job.
patch known technical vulnerabilities before the
This is
midterm
nuts.
elections. We have
This
very
is
important
just
elections coming
bollocks.
up. We want those elections, to be honest. I've also
Lie.
ordered DHS to notify every state about non-citizens on their voter rolls and direct them to remove all ineligible voters from the
They
lists
already do that.
immediately. But most
There's
importantly,
all kinds of
addressing
checks
this
and
crisis
balances.
of
They already
election
do that.
security demands that Congress must pass the Save America Act. How easy is that to do unless you
The
want to
Steal
cheat?
America Act.
The only reason you wouldn't do it is you want to cheat.
Right,
Because your
Packer?
policies are so bad.
Yeah, this is all
And your
about stealing.
candidates are so
Steal
pathetic
America
that
Act.
you can't get away or can't get elected any other way. This landmark bill requires that all voters must show.
Ironically, it might hurt
photo,
Republicans
voter
more. That's why there's
ID. How
Republicans that
simple
don't
is
like
that?
this.
Could I have your photo, please?
There's a
Photo,
ton of
voter
Republican
ID.
voters that don't.
All voters must provide proof of
More Republican women
citizenship.
take their
Are you
husband's
a
last
citizen of our
name
country, please?
than Democrat women.
And hopefully there will be no corrupt mail-in ballots, which if you watched California and so many other places, mail-in ballots are inherently corrupt. So you would have no mail-in ballots except for illness,
He votes by
disability,
mail.
military deployment, or
Trump votes by
travel.
mail.
If you're going away on
And
business or
millions of elderly
vacation.
Republican voters
These reforms are
vote by
urgently
mail.
needed to stop the vulnerabilities that I've mentioned. To all Americans, I ask you to pick up your phone tomorrow, call your representatives in the House and Senate,
He's got
and
nothing.
demand that they pass the Save America Act without delay. Together, we will restore faith and confidence in our country.
What
and we will
a
be
fucking
bigger,
load of
better,
bilge.
and stronger than ever before. Thank you. God bless you. God bless our great military. And God bless America. Thank you very much.
That's it. Is that it? That's it? That's it, huh? Holy shit. That's it? I mean, that's shockingly nothing. That is nothing. All right, let's cut to CNN here. Let's see what they got to say. I'm curious. We'll do CNN International. Hopefully they got someone talking here. That's it? Nope. Okay. CNN International is weird. See if we can find the lie count. Hundreds. Almost every single thing that he said was a lie. Literally. All right, let me do NBC here. Yeah. Because NBC was covering it. I was watching NBC before start here.
A target for our foreign adversaries for years. And U.S. intelligence and law enforcement officials have been saying this now for some time. And then, as you said, the voting database, the voter database information, obviously one does not want your adversaries scooping all that up necessarily, but most of
But what does that
is
mean?
commercially available.
Yeah,
I'll let
I mean,
Ryan and Kelly talk to
So
that
it's
further.
commercially
The other thing, he
available
mentioned
data
Venezuela.
that
Yeah,
was
talk about
stolen.
And I'm not quite clear where he's going with that, because he said that there was evidence that Venezuela, the regime then was
They got
manipulating
nothing.
its own, meddling in its own election, tilting it somehow. And there was an intelligence community report about the 2020 election here that concluded, let me read for this, we have no information suggesting that the current or former Venezuelan regimes were involved in attempts to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. So again, the running theme throughout all these intelligence reports and FBI reports and DHS reports is that our U.S. voting systems have not been disrupted or tampered with.
No votes have been
I
changed.
didn't hear any evidence from him that they had been. He said
all he said was talking about registrations that were thrown out.
The issue of vulnerabilities, which we know is something that exists. Kelly, certainly it's different than what
the major players on the world stage, China, Iran, Russia, are always trying to use their tools to get knowledge about the American system and to influence it, trying to change voters' minds before they get into the ballot box more often than not. What we're not hearing from the president is that they were in any way able to alter results or change the function of voting. So that's critically important. This database,
I thought he was going to come out with a blatant lie and said votes were changed.
Available, that's the kind of consumer data.
Votes were counted. Dead people.
Different entities buy
voted, and it was counted.
In your
they
Amazon
have nothing.
History. Well, you can also purchase voter registration.
And this is the system that got him into office twice.
That kind of information. It is not the information about who you voted for or what the results of the ballots you cast. I think the action points from the president, he's saying, I want the FBI to investigate. I want prosecutions if there are some. Big question there. He's talking about 2020. The statute of limitations on many election-related matters is 5 years. We're at 6 years.
This was the big speech.
So that'll be a question as well.
I made up some evidence, and now I'm investigating it.
Alludes to what Kelly is talking about. This was from 6 years ago. He's talking about a very narrow, small investigation that was launched by the FBI during that time in the wake of the 2020 election, claims that there was an effort to manipulate the vote there. The FBI looked into it, decided there was nothing to it, and the investigation basically stopped. He's alleging that it was the Biden Justice Department that looked the other way because they didn't want the results of this. Now, this is
so they thought something crazy was going on. They investigated it.
Democratic
they found that nothing crazy was going on. Then they dropped the investigation.
Cherry pick this one specific precinct, this one specific county in one specific state, and then allege that the entire country is the victim of vast voter fraud, I think you'd have to raise your eyebrows about that and say,
how's Onischke doing?
That's an
Simply
indication
Steve?
of something greater. Now, do they find new evidence that they have uncovered as a result of this? Could they find people that are guilty of voter fraud? That's not impossible.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
But would it change the results of the 2020 election? That's almost impossible.
No.
And the other point I would make too, bouncing off of what Kelly said about the vulnerabilities. Yes, there are the possibility that individual voting systems in individual places could be vulnerable.
That's a shame.
We have 50 different
I was hoping
states
for
that run
better
50
out of
different
Onischke
elections
this tournament.
in every presidential cycle. The idea that one foreign actor could get in and manipulate enough of those to overturn or change the results of the election without being caught is nearly impossible. That's part of the reason that we set up the system the way that we did. And there is simply no evidence that that's ever occurred. And the president did not provide that evidence tonight.
Let me go to our senior reporter, Jane Tam, who covers this very
not a single smoking gun, not even a manufactured
domestically here in the
smoking
United
gun.
States. And Jane, there's a fair amount to unpack here as the president covered some ground, again, making claims that it does not appear are backed up by some of the documents that he's shown as we're looking through some of the specifics here.
Yeah, I mean, the top line that I keep coming back to is the fact that in this country we audit paper ballots. Most jurisdictions in the U.S. use paper ballots. That's what we check. So talking about digital manipulation of ballot results in Venezuela, which is what I heard him talking about, it doesn't apply here in the same way. There are places that do have digital ballots, though we have other ways of checking those results. But that's sort of the top line for me, is that we use paper ballots in this country. So if something like this was attempted, and we know that all systems are vulnerable in some way, if this was
like
attempted,
1% fraud.
We would know. We would be able to catch it. We would be able to check it. That's sort of
metric.
how our local
we have some of the best
works.
elections in the world.
And I will say that I've already been talking to election officials while I was listening to you guys, and the first thing they said was, if the president is worried about
less
this,
than 1%.
why did he gut the federal agency that was helping election officials protect against foreign interference, that was helping them protect
he did that a couple weeks ago.
Election infrastructure, if this is a top concern here?
Yeah, I'd love to see Wakataka Kage take it.
Jane Tim, thanks. I want to very quickly bring in our chief White House correspondent, Garrett Haake. In about 15 seconds, Garrett, I'm going to ask for a quick pause, but just in a sentence or two, can you give me your overall thoughts? I know that's a challenge.
Broadly, the president's concerns about election security don't support his conclusion. He ended with the line that might have been ad-libbed about elections being stolen, but he didn't support it.
He didn't even manufacture a smoking gun. Like, he literally said, I got a bunch of evidence and we're looking into it.
Special report.
And that's all I got. The fraudulent system that voted me in twice.
The president's primetime address on election integrity, where the president described information he says is now declassified related to allegations of voter fraud and cover-ups, including accusing China of acquiring 220 million U.S. voter files in what he calls the largest compromise of election data in history. Keep in mind, voter files are publicly available materials. And while our reporting teams are still combing through the specifics of these documents, the core of what the president is referencing in these allegations are largely not new. Here's more of what the president said.
The documents cover 5 major areas of concern. First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S.
publicly available, commercially available voting information.
Names, addresses, phone numbers,
so they bought some voter
information and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening.
Other nefarious activities.
This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China assigned a data exploitation unit specifically to this new project. Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we
have they changed the vote
reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, in many cases,
you're the deep state, dude,
work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling, covering it up from
a bunch of bollocks
and the American people like nobody thought was possible.
Tolo, a bunch of fucking nonsense.
Let me bring in now our chief White House correspondent, Garrett Haake, who is joining us from the North Lawn. And Garrett, President Trump previously for years had pushed conspiracy theories about election fraud. So bring us up to speed tonight. What did he say, if anything, that was new?
Hallie, broadly speaking, much of this would sound familiar to people who followed the president. He described the U.S. election system as falling, in his words, catastrophically short of the standards we should have for election security, and described a declassification and review of American election records that broadly fell into several categories, including that obtaining of voter information by China. Another category relates to activities that were taking place in Venezuela. A third category on cover-ups, and a fourth on domestic, let's call them voter irregularities, including a focus specifically on one GOTV group in Michigan. He concluded with a line, I don't know whether it was scripted or ad-lib, saying that stolen elections cannot happen again.
That's not a problem,
He used
Blark.
the data he was presenting to make a case that any specific election was stolen, merely that there were these categories of vulnerabilities. He concluded with a push to pass the Save America Act, a piece of legislation that would overhaul parts of the voting
mail
system
is
in this country,
post-dated
namely requiring voter ID
before
and
the
proof of
election,
citizenship
then it
to
should
both
be
register and to vote, casting that as a prescription. But again, the prescription didn't exactly match up with the complaints that the president outlined throughout the course of this. As you said, Hallie, hundreds of pages of documents here released by the White House with information we still have to review to find what exactly is new and what's supported by other information publicly available.
And our team's looking through it. Garrett, thanks, including our national security and global affairs reporter, Dan DeLuce. And Dan, one of the questions people will ask, was there anything revealed by the president? Is there anything in these documents that would have changed any actual vote count?
I didn't hear that in that speech. He talked about China not wanting him to get elected. He talked about them getting a hold of this voter data.
Clark is talking nonsense.
I didn't hear him, and I haven't seen any.
If the letter is post-dated before or on the election, then it should be counted. It's simple shit.
Got into a state's election counting system, tampered with ballots. He didn't talk about that. I don't see it yet in the documents. Where's the smoking gun? He's not even really alleging that. So I think the case is still out there. As far as we know,
I thought he had something cooked up.
Joe Biden won that election. And he's also not making clear what should be done now exactly.
He didn't even make something
the federal
up.
Government should take over the process. But he kind of left that open in that speech.
Let me go to our chief Capitol Hill correspondent, Ryan Nobles, who's joining us now. This speech was controversial even before it began, with some of the president's critics suggesting he is trying to sow doubt about the legitimacy of American elections just months before the midterms. And in his own party, questions about why this message now.
Yeah, that's right.
By the way, Blart,
I think there are
Trump
many
took full
Republicans that would
advantage of
prefer a
mail-in
speech like
votes
this with his
that
big
won him the
audience that
election.
the president had be focused on things like affordability, the price of gas, kitchen table issues that affect millions of Americans. And
sure, Blart, I agree. It should be prioritized.
They are going to decide when they go to the ballot box.
Sure.
Instead, he's pushing.
I would be happy with that. Mail-in votes should be prioritized.
Is unpopular
first class.
With Republicans and Democrats in the Save America
Put to the
Act.
front of the line.
It doesn't have the votes to pass. It probably still will not have the votes to pass after this speech, despite what the president tried to present here tonight.
And very quickly, Kelly O'Donnell, we also heard the president nod to some of the political realities at the very top of that speech.
He certainly did, and acknowledging that there are other considerations in terms of what's going on with Iran, talking about the economy. One of the prescriptions he said going forward is he wants to work with states to strengthen their various voting capabilities.
But the Postmaster General is literally saying we're going to hold
Kelly,
mail-in
Ryan,
ballots.
Dan, thank you. Our thanks to Garrett Hake as well, and to all
the
of you
right-wing
for watching.
Postmaster General that Trump installed said he's going to make sure that it takes longer
on NBC News Daily, on our streaming network, NBC News Now, and online at NBCNews.com. Join us on our streaming channel for further coverage. I'm Hallie Jackson. We'll see you soon.
What? This is it? Okay, hold on. We're going to stick around to see. They said, okay, check out the streaming channel. What? He's got nothing. He's got fucking nothing. Nothing, dude. I mean, literally nothing. So no, Tolo, he's talking about the mail-in ballots going through the postal system. But Trump has appointed somebody that said we're gonna delay things. We're gonna make it harder for ballots to get through the mail, right? And Blark is saying they should be prioritized, which is fine. Yeah, they should be. But the guy in charge is like, not only am I going to deprioritize them, I'm going to hold on to them. And Trump, I think there's an executive order, or he just changed a rule.
There was.
That,
and we didn't hear it tonight.
Yeah, we already saw this. But they changed a rule that basically says the USPS can now interfere with mail. They can hold on to mail, election related mail, and just indefinitely. They can just break rules and break laws. So Trump's talking about fraud. He's literally making it easier to commit fraud. And one of the reasons why it takes so long is to check the legitimacy of the vote. Right? It goes through this whole process. They open it up, they scan it, it goes through checks, they check the signature. Right? And he's like, oh, faster, I want it to be faster, which would make it easier to commit more fraud. It's insanity. It's insanity. There was literally nothing wrong with our election system. And there's, until Trump came along and made a bunch of false accusations. And now with him in charge, he's making a bunch of changes that's going to create a bunch of issues for our election system. He's creating the fraud that he's claiming exists. Yeah, and if they get this Steal America Act, yeah, Markov, you have to go to work tomorrow. Sorry, buddy. But no, if they pass the Steal America Act, it's going to disenfranchise tens of millions of Republicans. Republican women are more likely to take their husband's last name than Libby fucking lefties, right? Feminist leftists often keep the women. They keep their last names. They don't take the last name of their husband. My wife did that. I don't give a shit. Right? Republicans give a shit. So if the Steal America Act passes, it's going to disenfranchise tens of millions of Republicans. There's a reason why Republicans are not too interested in the Steal America Act, because they're like, yeah, we're talking about, and another thing as well is that Democrats are more likely to have the necessary documents. They're also more likely to go to the DMV and get their necessary documents on time if these changes are made. Republicans are less likely to be able to afford it and to have the wherewithal to go to the DMV to get these documents. It's literally the Screw Republican Voters Act. The loophole for trad wives, yeah. If you wear a gingham dress. Are we back here?
Secret. It was not covered up. It came out in the intelligence report at the time, and this is a report that was overseen by John Radcliffe, who at that time was the director of national intelligence during Trump's first term, and now, as you know, he's the director of the CIA.
That's so important. It's people who work for Trump who were part of what he was talking about.
His deep state
intelligence briefings in office in his first term, those were done by his own employees. So if he wasn't getting the information he wanted, they have some responsibility in that. And certainly there has been a lot of disclosure about
Sorry, Simply Steve, death and taxes, it's still a thing.
Our viewers might be surprised. China has voter data. They might be surprised by that. That might seem like a stunning headline, but it is purchasable. It is obtainable, and it is. Hallie Jackson lives at such and such address.
They hacked the voter data.
To vote in
they
such
bought
and
it
such
from a
precinct.
store.
That kind of information.
It was legally selling
also,
it.
When you talk about deceased voters or non-citizen voters, there may also be areas there where there are problems at a local level. The numbers, even though
Any
they sounded large,
can register to vote. That doesn't mean your vote is counted.
That he put forward today, it's a tiny percentage of the available voters who are legitimate voters. So this is not about changing outcomes. It was nothing that he said tonight that would have changed an outcome. And he didn't really assert that. I actually expected that he might say more about I won in 2020 and here's how. And that did not happen.
He didn't give us anything.
What did he want?
He didn't even make some shit up.
Well, then what does he want?
I mean, well, he ended by making a pitch for the Save America Act, which is this legislation that he's been pushing for some time that he claims would fix all of these problems. But when you look at the Save America Act, the most important aspect of it is that it would keep non-citizens from voting, or it would allege to keep non-citizens from voting. It's already legal in this country to vote here if you are not a citizen. There's only one leg of this
I search for MS now, and this comes up.
Or 5-point investigation, if you will, that they released today that deals with non-citizens voting. It claims that there are voter rolls that reflect close to 300,000 non-citizens.
You know I got to click on that one.
To vote, the ability to vote, that they're on voter rolls. That doesn't mean they actually cast ballots. But other than that, when we're talking about this disinformation,
I search for MS now, and this is what comes up.
The vulnerabilities of these election systems across the country, none of that is addressed in the Save America Act. It's photo ID, it's proof of citizenship, it's going through the voter rolls to make sure that non-citizens are not on the ballot. So it's interesting that he spent so much time talking and basically undermining the faith that Americans might have in their election system when the prescription that he's offering to fix it
am I allowed
really
to show
doesn't
this?
do much
I'm
of
gonna
that.
get in trouble, dog.
It's interesting the way that he kind of laid out this thesis with the goal of getting to the end of it by saying we need to do this immediately.
All right, I'm going to save that one. Only 73 people watching
really
this.
Address many of the things that he raised as possible issues.
Let me pull in the China of it all with our national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent Tom Winter, who's done some deep reporting on this for a number of years, Tom, on what's being alleged here and what we did not hear about tonight.
Right, Hallie. So you all have well discussed what the president said tonight, the political ramifications of what he said tonight. Allow me to take you to spy school. Here's a document. You can see it here. It says that it is too sensitive of an organization, a U.S. government agency, to even share.
I'm clicking on it for at least a couple seconds.
Some of these documents are, which of course make it difficult. What we are gleaning is that it appears that China, over the course of a decade, was able to acquire at least 8 states, perhaps as many as 18, some of or all of their voter registration rolls. That's what's included in here.
Publicly
in
available information you can buy.
As unclassified,
and there's plenty of legitimate
by the White House Counsel. There are other reports and reporting in there about other steps that China may or may not have taken, certainly steps that they would have considered.
The Black Tape Project has been in my starred list for
China,
years.
For a number of countries, including the United States, trying to figure out who is who. And there's another component of this. When you take the voter rolls, you start to establish all the United States citizens, and that could be potentially helpful for other intelligence targeting as
potentially,
well. Another
allegedly,
thing that kind of came up here tonight, as far as the things that we didn't
got nothing.
hear, Hallie, it is currently 4:47 a.m. in Moscow, Russia. The sun is now up. We heard nothing about Russia's efforts in 2016, in 2020, to interfere or
and some of that was legitimate
in the U.S. election. Were there efforts, according to everything that's been reported,
the fake ads,
or successful
the propaganda?
That
was a legitimate.
No,
some of it was legitimate effort in 2016 by Russia
from both elections for trying to interfere in the process or being associated with those efforts. For the KGB spy Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, I would imagine that'd be a little bit difficult to take potentially this morning.
Hey, sorry for my
your efforts that are well documented.
Sorry for my masculine urge to click on the black tape project.
Tonight. So a couple of things that are coming up in the course of this. We're continuing to pour through these documents. Yeah. It's not one whole start to finish, if you will. We're getting some threads of documents, different summaries, but of course it's all the types of things that we'll go over
Simply, Steve,
and try to determine here what actually was taken and how serious it could have been.
No one jerks it with fucking lotion, by the way. Let me go to our Chief White House
correspondent Garrett Haake, and let's just stick on this thread of the China issue because it's very much a live ball for President Trump in the months ahead.
Yeah, I agree. And I was struck as the president laid out what he said was the case against China going back to 2018 with the question of what does he intend to do about it? Because it was only a few months ago that the president spent a couple of days in Beijing as a guest of Chinese President Xi Jinping for a state visit. He's invited the Chinese president here to the United States for a reciprocal state visit. Is that the way you treat someone who you believe has violated your elections in the manner that the president felt was necessary to describe in this way with declassifying information?
He just blamed all this on China, but they're scheduled to come by.
Action to try to impose tariffs or some other kind of punishment on the Chinese government if he believes that this violation by them is in fact that serious? That was the takeaway this morning.
Oh, it's going to be Xi Jinping, great guy. Xi Jinping loves me.
The president who suggested this should change the U.S.'s relationship
Stole
with China.
The election.
For what it's worth, in the past,
Stole the election, but he's a great guy.
In this vein, be it about China or Russia or other countries, he tends to shrug it off, saying things to the effect of, "Oh, they do this to us, we do it to them." But given the gravity and the manner in which they built up this address,
I can't believe he didn't even make something up.
Elections. What happens tomorrow and in September with the follow-through, I think is something we should all be watching.
This was embarrassing.
Yeah,
this was
no kidding.
This was
Garrett
terrible.
Haake, thank you very much. Let me bring in Jane Tim now to the conversation because Jane, one of the things that was touched upon by President Trump,
bullshit
and again,
I dug up from years ago.
This non-citizens. Walk us through this because you and I had a conversation about this not too long ago, and I think our viewers would enjoy hearing it too.
Yeah, so I'm reading through the White House's documentation now, and they say that over 250,000 non-citizens were found when they looked at the voter rolls of four states.
That doesn't mean that any votes were counted, even if that's true, which it probably isn't.
Voter rolls, the kind of voter rolls that I can buy if I have an Amex and, a willingness to spend a few $100s for the public voter rolls, and put it through a federal database that once was used to administer benefits. Now, this database has been reworked by the Trump administration to try and use it for election officials. But early reports show that when you put voter rolls through this, and I'm talking the private voter rolls, the kind with social security numbers, the kind that are much more accurate than the public voter rolls, when you put people through that, you often end up with lists of newly naturalized citizens.
Illusions that there might be some fraud.
Reworked and jerry-rigged finds lots of newly naturalized citizens.
There's nothing. He's got nothing.
Flagged as potential non-citizens. And when you put public data through that, it's going to come up with incredibly inaccurate lists. There is little indication to show that the White House's documentation
any schmuck can fill out a registration form. That doesn't mean
show up on the voter rolls.
They vote, and it certainly doesn't mean that vote counted.
Is saying. There's also no evidence of the fraud that he said was occurring because you have to actually
Blark,
vote
that's not what he's trying to do, though.
To be committing voter fraud.
Jane Tim, Jane, thank you for that. Let me go back to Ryan Nobles now because
Trump
Ryan,
has no interest
preemptive criticism
in
of the
finding fraud.
Began.
Right. Trump wants to defraud the election system
from people around the country. Walk us through it.
Yeah, let's show the preemptive first, and that's Kamala Harris, the former candidate for president who ran against Donald Trump as the nominee, but also won the race in 2020. She specifically
Get her off
says
the screen.
The 2020 election
we don't
was
need to be
stolen.
hearing from Kamala.
We won and he lost. But I do think the reaction
we don't
from
need
Democrats
to be hearing from Kamala
tonight
please.
has been pretty significant and has been pretty broad. they're angry about this. They're angry that the president of the United States would go on in a wide public forum. I'm not going to say a national TV.
And once again, I keep saying this.
Not all national TV.
This fraudulent system put him into office twice, and the second time gave him a fucking super majority
to make these
fraud
definitive claims about the United States election system without providing the requisite proof.
Oh, sure.
One extreme end, Senator
that
Ed
Nick
Markey,
Shirley shit is fucking bullshit.
But
yeah, we should be trying to do whatever we can
and facing a tough
be going after
primary
fraud
by Seth Moulton in Massachusetts. But he is calling for the president.
Trump administration doesn't give a fuck about actual fraud.
And subverting free and fair elections.
The COVID
and is
PPP
also warning
loans
about the threat that he may send ICE agents to the polls in the election.
They forgave billions of dollars on that.
There's a lot of concern.
All kinds of fraud there.
Democrats in particular that the president is going to use
billions of dollars have been lost
information
with Trump pardoning his cronies because of fraud.
An emergency or to do something along those lines to try and intervene in the 2026 elections.
What I'm pushing back on,
Chuck Schumer,
Blark,
who's the Senate minority leader, said.
What I'm pushing back on, Blark, is I don't know if you seem to think that Trump is honest or is like acting in good faith in his efforts to go after fraud, because he's not. He's actually not interested in going after fraud. He's only interested in, going after Democrat states and trying to, and Somalis and whatnot, even though it was a white person that committed more fraud than any Somali that was there. But Donald Trump has enabled more fraud than any presidential administration in the history of our country. With his pardons, with his pay-to-play schemes. If you're a right wing committing fraud, go crazy, go nuts. He's only interested in going after people that he can, say that are left wing and committing fraud. But if you're a right winger, if you're an ally of his, you can commit billions of dollars worth of fraud and he will forgive you. Right? So that's where I'm pushing back on, is that if you think Trump is being good faith in his efforts to go after fraud, it's a total fucking lie.
Worried about that? People, nonpartisan experts, are worried that this kind of discussion and all.
And for Medicare, you could look at Florida. There's all kinds of Medicare fraud happening in Florida. Donald Trump doesn't give a fucking shit about it.
About our system. The other thing I want to add about the intelligence agencies is a lot of retired former intelligence officers are very worried about all of this. And these people are not partisan. They're quite nonpartisan, a lot of them, and maybe even right of center a lot of the time. And they're worried about the intelligence agencies being used for political purpurposes.
They don't care. There's no shame.
Documents being released.
They'll repeat whatever lies. Look at Mike Johnson, Ted Cruz,
classified documents, and they
Lindsey Graham. Oh, whoops, sorry.
Something kind of very sober.
Whatever. They'll just repeat it. China. Oh, it's China. Oh, so much fraud. Oh, China. Deep state China.
This is kind of tainting their profession in a way.
Garrett, let me go to you on this, because if you had a little deja vu from previous elections, you may be forgiven when it came to, the railing against vote by mail, which again is something that brought concerns from the president's own party in an election, previous elections we've seen where a lot of people vote by mail.
Hallie, this was another case in which the president's allegations didn't ultimately support his conclusions, which may have been ad lib. Near the end of his remarks, the president, when talking about vote by mail, called it mail-in ballots are inherently corrupt. This is a president who has, in fact, used mail-in ballots himself in the past, and that allegation, I think, would be news
tens
to the
of millions of Republicans
like
use mail-in ballots.
Utah, where mail-in ballots are the rule, not the exception. This is something that the president has wanted to have included in the Save America Act.
He's got this idea that it's going to help him and his party. It's going to destroy him and his party.
The use of mail-in ballots around the country. That's not in the current version of that legislation.
It's going to hurt Republicans to kill mail-in voting.
Require people who register to get a mail-in ballot to prove their citizenship. So this is another issue that has been sort of stuck in the mind of the president for years now, that he inserted into this, briefing about all this other documentation, but again, not supported by the information.
I'll be streaming on Saturday. Come on in.
Garrett Haake, thanks. Kelly, as we look ahead now, because we've got the midterms just coming up in several months, we're obviously going to be looking ahead at the 2028 campaign, which will be here before we know it. This is going to continue to be a topic of conversation for President Trump. He's making that very clear.
It has been one his entire national political life, so that will continue. And in using this intelligence for a specific piece of legislation that we've talked about, that's part of it. And often people view their own local election, meaning their neighborhood, the fire station, the school, where they go to vote. They have confidence there. They get worried about what's happening elsewhere in the country. And this
because Donald Trump has injected a bunch of doubt where it doesn't belong.
There are those who should not be voting, who might be on the rolls.
Bunch of skepticism.
Interference as a possibility.
We have one of the best election systems on the planet.
What he didn't say tonight that many feared was federalization of the election. He did not do that.
Fraudulent.
Kelly O'Donnell, Ryan Nobles, Dan DeLuce, Jane Tim, Garrett Haake.
Yeah, no problem, Lenny. We're gonna wrap it up right here. Let me just say there's data I've shown it on the stream that in the last 20 years, there was like 20 or like 40 percent fake votes. So we're talking tens of millions of votes. And less than like 0.0001% of them were fraudulent in the last 40 years. Okay? That is fantastic. No, Quantum, he didn't. Interestingly, he said, yeah, it's incredibly low. The amount of actual fraud in our electoral system, look it up, Blark. I'm not making it up. ChatGPT, look this shit up. I report on this shit. 0.00001% or something, like incredibly low amounts of actual, like, okay, this person shouldn't have voted and the vote counted, right? Not this person signed up for a vote, or like this person tried to vote for his dog or vote for his dead grandma and then got busted for it. By the way, Republicans are often the ones doing that. So the actual amount of fake person, dead person, immigrant registers to vote, votes, and it's actually counted is less than 1% in the last 40 years. That hundreds of millions of votes processed and less than 0.001%. We have one of the best election systems in fucking history. In the world. And it's Donald Trump who is, with all these changes, trying to inject a bunch of doubt, trying to inject a bunch of fraud, ironically. The big thing that worries me, you might have heard of this company called Dominion, right? Dominion Voting Systems. They were the company that was suing all these Republicans, including Fox News, for slander because they were like, oh, these Dominion voting machines, Rudy Giuliani had a big thing about it, right? 10,000 mules or whatever. They have been purchased by a right-wing MAGA freakazoid, and we're still using their machines. So now right-wingers have the ability. They own this massive voting company, and they have the ability to change the software and, not make that data publicly available so that it can be independently verified like it used to be. Yeah, stay away from the fucking lettuce unless you want diarrhea. I mean, Blark, if I had it my way, I think I would just do all paper ballots, but it would take longer if we were to do that. Well, voting with your phone, you might be able to have more fraud if you make voting easier in that way, right? If you're voting from the phone, right? The current system, you go through like at least five different checks and balances. You're going through at least 5 different verifications, right? You got to verify your address. You got to verify your social security number. You got to verify, if you're registered to vote. You got to verify your signature. And it all goes through all these different checks and all these different layers, and you could get disqualified at any point. And if they find that your trying to defraud the voting system, your ass gets arrested. You know how I know that? Because every year there's like half a dozen Republicans who think because they heard it on Sean Hannity that, you know, oh, liberals are doing it. Liberals are stealing, you know, the illegals are voting by the millions. They hear these lies and they think, okay, well, I'm going to defraud the voting system. And then they get their ass arrested. Look it up. Look it up. Every fucking year, half a dozen Republicans try some crazy shit, get their asses arrested. Almost never a liberal Democrat. Almost never a fucking illegal immigrant. So I need to stress that. Like, this is a non-issue. This entire fear-mongering about fraud in our electoral system is totally manufactured. And the data backs it up. What Trump wants to do is make it easier to steal. There was no fraud in the COVID election cycle. There was just there was an increase in mail-in ballots because people didn't want to spread COVID. There was nothing fraudulent about it. Same checks. Same exact checks. There was no fraudulent voting during COVID. Well, yeah, technically Ukraine is winning, but Zelensky with his recent decision, we're going to talk about this on Saturday, but Zelensky is pissing people off with his big decision to fire this, you know, head of the military or whatever. Yeah, Blark. Yeah, actually. It's, you know, the one thing that right wingers point to as like scary is in California during COVID, people were automatically registered to mail in vote. And all that means is that they were sent something in the mail. That's it. Still, I was there. I was living in San Francisco at the time. Got the thing in the mail, had to fill it all out with my information, had to register to vote beforehand, right? Had to do the whole fucking thing. It wasn't pre-filled out. You know, who I voted for wasn't pre-filled out for the Democrats. Okay. I went through the same exact checks, the whole fucking 9. And all the same checks. Okay. I just need to stress this. There is no fraud. Unfortunately, that means that the American public, the voting American public, chose Donald Trump twice. No, it wasn't, Blark. But that means is that Donald Trump won. Now, it's interestingly, there is some evidence that Donald Trump actually, you know, if there is any evidence of any kind of election theft, it's actually the Republicans. But it's like, it's so exhausting to even get into it. But there is, Greg Palast has covered this. If you're Blark, since you're so interested in, you know, fraud and whatnot. There's actually, Greg Palast is a, you know, highly respected journalist. And he actually has some very interesting information about how Donald Trump might have actually lost the last election. So here, if you want to read up on that. But honestly, I just like to quantify fraud so we know what it costs us taxpayers. Sure. We can all agree fraud is bad. What we shouldn't do is put a fox in the hen house, right? We shouldn't put a pedophilic, corrupt, the most corrupt president that's ever existed in American history in charge of the system that's supposed to be investigating this fraud and supposed to be giving us fraud. There is undeniable evidence that Donald Trump is enabling fraud, pay-to-play schemes. Like literally just today this was announced. Let me show you something. Let me show you how bad the fraud is coming from Donald Trump. right? He has no interest in doing anything about quantifying fraud, stopping fraud. He wants to increase the fraud, but only for him. So let me show you something here. They're literally implementing I'm waiting for Discord to load. They're literally implementing a system for banks and other financial institutions. I guess I'll just have to tell you because my Discord's taking forever here. But they're literally implementing a system for banks and financial institutions to get access to Donald Trump's Truth Social tweets, right? His social media. They're setting up a pay-to-play system so that these financial institutions get access to his social media posts before anybody else. And you should know what that means, right? If that means that these financial institutions, these banks, will have access to information that affects the market before the rest of the public. It's literally insider trading. Literally. And that's what Donald Trump, he owns. He's got a controlling share over this social media company, Truth Social. So that's how bad that, and that was just recently. Right here. Here's the article. Literally legalized insider trading. All right, I clicked it, but it's not. Hold on. Let me get the link here. Well, it shouldn't be, and it seems like you would agree that it shouldn't be. But if you care about fraud, then you should hate Donald Trump, because he has no interest whatsoever. And I'll give you the link here in the chat. He has no interest whatsoever in stopping fraud. In fact, he wants to make fraud legal, of course, for him and his cronies. Get this. So while he's implementing something like this, yeah, exactly, Portland. So while he's this is how bad the hypocrisy is, though. So while he's implementing something like this, the guy that's in charge of his machine that has the what's it called, the goddamn machine that has his speech. What's the fucking name? The tele something. Right, it's got the speech in front of him on glass. It's displayed. What the fuck is that machine called? Someone help me out in the chat here. Hold on. Yeah, teleprompter. Thank you, Camel Tony, at the same exact time. So while he's making insider trading easier, the guy that Trump's teleprompter guy is being investigated for insider trading because he has access to Trump's speech beforehand, right, to set up the teleprompter, and he's making bets on fucking Kelce. He made like $90,000 because he knows Trump's going to say this thing about this, and then the market goes. So he gets to implement literally insider trading, pay to play insider trading on his social media application. But then his teleprompter guy makes 90G, right, making small bets on Kelce, which is, the whole thing is ridiculous, right? I'm against Kelce. I'm against the betting markets, right? But he gets busted. He gets arrested. But Donald Trump, we all know there's all kinds of there are these accounts on Kelce and other betting markets that are making hundreds of millions of dollars because they somehow know that Donald Trump is going to do this, or they somehow know that Donald Trump is going to do that. And the speculation is that it's either his son or someone close to Trump, right? Maybe one of Trump's sons, Don Jr., maybe Stephen Miller. So that's what I'm trying to say is if you give a shit about fraud, Donald Trump should be your number one enemy. You shouldn't be trying to give him credit or or give him the benefit of the doubt. that he somehow cares about fraud. The motherfucker is fraudulent. He is everything. Everything's a grift with him. Everything is about money, money. How much money can I make on this? How much money can I make on that? Gaza is a fucking grift. Venezuela is a grift. You know when Donald Trump invaded Venezuela, he opened up a private bank account so the oil money could go into a Trump-controlled private bank account. Yeah, and one of the first things that Donald Trump did when he got into office his second term was make these betting markets totally legal. It's ludicrous. If you give a shit about fraud, Donald Trump should be your number one enemy. If you actually care about fraud. It's irrefutable. It's irrefutable. The man is a grifter on top of being a sexual assaulter rapist. On top of being a Jeffrey Epstein connected pedophile, he's also wildly corrupt and happy to steal billions. He's increased his net worth by 100 times since getting into office the second time. He's become a fucking billionaire because of his fraud. So this whole like Nick Shirley, Donald Trump draining the swamp, bullshit. Bullshit. Nick Shirley hasn't done a single story about Donald Trump's blatant, overt, in front of everybody, naked fraud. Not a single story about Donald Trump. Nick Shirley. He is an obvious grifter. Quite frankly, he's mentally ill. Can barely fucking string together a fucking sentence. So there you go, folks. My conclusion is that I was honestly expecting a lot more from this. I was like, okay, this guy's got some kind of smoking gun, right? He's got something good. He's got something juicy, right? Something he's made up. Right, he's got something right that we didn't hear about before, that is going to be like, oh, okay, well maybe okay, he's gonna turn a molehill into a mountain, right? Okay, he found some legitimate fraud somewhere, and now he's gonna say it's all this, it's this thing is huge, and this is the whole reason why I lost in 2020. He didn't even do that. He took a bunch of information we already had. And now he's going to reopen investigations into a bunch of nonsense. He's got nothing. That's my conclusion. Nothing. But he's going to try. He's going to, it's all about the Steal America Act, which once again is ironic because it could very well hurt Republicans more than Democrats. The Steal America Act, which is why we see some Republicans standing up against it, because they're like, this is going to destroy my political career. More than half my constituents use mail-in voting. More than half my constituents are women that have taken their husband's last name. More than half my constituents don't have the money or the means to go to the DMV to go get extra documentation. I'm going to lose my election if the Steal America Act passes. This is coming from Republicans. So I'm actually quite shocked. I was really expecting, that's why I was doing a special stream today. We normally stream on Saturdays. If if you're new to the stream, you're like, what the hell's going on here? This is the News Underground. I'm Abandoned Nihilism. But yeah, I try to stream every Saturday. Wasn't able to stream last Saturday because of some bullshit, but I'll be streaming this Saturday. And I was expecting something new, something that they were going to be able to hold on to and say, oh, yep, we're taking care of business and we're going to fix this system that isn't broken. And he didn't even give us that. He gave us a wheelbarrow of fucking shit. Like from Jurassic Park, right? That's a lot of shit. He gave us nothing. Yeah, you got it, Blark. I appreciate your open mind. And if you actually do care about fraud, then Donald Trump should be your number one enemy. But anyway, folks, should we be concerned? Yes, absolutely. He's still trying to get the Steal America Act passed. They're attaching it to the new budget bill. They're trying whatever trick that they can try to get this Save America Act, Steal America Act passed. He's still gonna do it, but it's seemingly less and less likely to happen. And then if the Republicans truly do lose the midterms, which it does seem like they're gonna, who knows how desperate he'll get, right? Martial law, declaring Democrats, liberals, and lefties of all different shapes and sizes to be terrorists, according to NSPM 7, using ICE as a paramilitary force to arrest liberals and Democrats. Who knows where we can get, where we'll go from here. But what today has shown me is that they don't have enough legitimate information to make the claim that there's fraud, but they seemingly don't have enough balls or ability or wherewithal to just manufacture, literally just making shit up, like Russia style, right? If this was Putin, he'd come out and say, 40% of the people that voted for Democrats were faulty, right? He would come out and just say, just make up some number, and I'm not going to prove it. If you demand for proof, I'm going to arrest you, right? That's what Putin would do, right? Just completely make up a lie. I'm not going to give you any evidence. If you ask for evidence, I'm going to arrest you as a terrorist. Kind of shit. China style shit, right? But they don't have the balls to do it, or they don't have the ability to do it. They didn't want to do it. I don't know. I honestly thought he was going to come out here with some just total bull, manufactured bull. And they don't seem to have the cojones to do that, right? They literally just a bunch of information that we already knew, allegations, insinuations. I'm going to open up investigations. He's got nothing. So let's not forget the whole point of the stream, the 3-step program. Step 1, we inform ourselves. That's what we do today. Step 2, we sign up and show up to activist groups, people that are organizing, people that need your help. We sign up and we show up. And step 3, we put in the fucking work, because nonviolent, direct political action is the only thing that's going to save this country and save our democracy. We have to start now. If you haven't started already, you have to make activism a part of your life if we're going to keep our democracy. That is the only way forward. In fact, it is the only thing that has ever actually worked in creating progressive democratic change in this country. The 3-step program. I'm Abandoned Nihilism. This has been the News Underground. Big fucking fat props to everybody in the stream. Hope you're doing well. We'll see you on Saturday. Take care of yourself and prepare for this fight. It's gonna, if you don't want to fight, doesn't matter. Fight's gonna come to you. So you might as well get ready and learn how to fight now before it's too late. So thank you to everyone. Cliver coming in here at the last second. Thank you to everyone. Protect yourself and protect your family by learning how to protect your democracy. I'll see you on Saturday. Have a good one, folks. Thank you again.